My parents split at a very early age. How do you know when to start to heal the inner child?
First of all, I'm very sorry to hear that, especially being that it happened during a very sensitive period of your life when a person is in the adolescent stage, really finding their identity.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Lily. And I'm super excited that I'm finally having my first episode of this podcast, of this talk show. I have been looking forward to doing this for such a long time. Anyway, before I give you that background, let me welcome the guest for today, Patricia. Karibu sana. So with us is Patricia Kabogoro, who is a psychologist and a psychotherapist with over 5 years of experience in mental health. She's the founder of Vitality Holistic Counseling, where she focuses on trauma-informed therapy and emotional healing. She also serves as an educator and trainer at the Kenya Institute of Business and Counseling Studies, where she mentors and equips aspiring mental health professionals. Karibu sana, Patricia.
Thank you, Lilian.
Yes.
I'm very honored to be here.
Now, that was a very formal introduction, but I want to know, who is Patricia?
Okay. So, what do you want to know?
You know, what led you to practicing counseling and psychology? Yeah.
First of all, whenever I meet anyone in this field, I know one thing for sure. I know that they've gone through something in their life that has led them to want to learn psychology and fix that. That thing. So the same applies to me.
Yeah.
I like to refer to myself as a wounded healer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So having gone through a couple of things in the past, I decided that I didn't get anyone to help me through it, to help me process things psychologically.
Yeah.
So I decided I needed to fill that gap.
Yes.
And here I am 5 years later.
Wow. Thank you for doing that. Oh, lovely. Yes.
A mom and a friend to many.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that I get to host you, Patricia, as the first person in this show. Reason being, Patricia is my trainer at KIPCO, where I'm now currently studying counseling and psychology. And we were together outside class. And there was a time we were having conversations in class, and I talked, and I told her, or I told the class, that one day I'm going to have this documented, documented. And they said, go for it. Then that day we sat outside, and you told me, oh, so when are you going to do it? I said, maybe I'll wait. And you told me, that's imposter syndrome talking. And you said, just go right ahead and do it, And I have never felt a deep sense of starting like I did that day. And of course, everything about putting this together may feel like a task. First, it's not cheap to come up with a production team, to be able to launch a show like this. But that challenge you gave me that day, I could not go back. And there was no other better time to do this than in this month. It's the Mental Health Awareness Month. And it's also the month that I get to celebrate my birthday. So I feel like a lot is so significant for me that I'm so glad that you gave me that push. You told me, just do it. You told me that. And I felt like there's nothing to wait for, I cannot keep giving excuses. I cannot keep having the imposter syndrome. And then something else that I did was I was a bit fearful, about going outside with and going public.
Yeah.
Because a lot of things about this kind of events or programs or whatnot is they get to, expose you to the public. And I remember not being very comfortable with that. But there's one person I want to shout out, and that's my husband, Ken. When I went to him and I told him, I want to do this, and I'm afraid that, when you go public, certain things and dynamics happen. And he said, you know what? Go for it. I'm ready for it. Whatever comes, I'm ready for it. Go for it. Those two aspects cemented the reason that we are here today. Yeah?
Yeah.
And when you experienced me that day in class, please tell the people, what is it that made you feel like you now have that confidence in me to have this kind of a show?
Okay. In most cases, when a person has imposter syndrome, like what I told you, you're brilliant, but there's something holding you back.
Yeah.
Often fear. And I remember I told you that people with less skill, less resources, and less, without even stories to give, are doing it fearlessly.
Yes.
So imposter syndrome tends to hold you back, and you have a lot that you can share, particularly with regard to the boy child. I hope you plan to delve into that.
That is it. Yes, I do.
Yeah. There's a very significant gap. The conversations that we're going to be having, or that you're going to be having, will lead to something.
Yeah.
Will lead to something positive.
Yes.
So it's a good space. It's a good space to impact people more.
And there's a comment that you gave one time during the training, and you said, so many people are walking wounded, and they're wounding others knowingly or unknowingly. All right?
Yeah.
And you said we need a lot more of us, meaning the counselors, the psychologists, the psychotherapists. We need a lot more of us, and we also need to create this awareness and demystify the stigma that comes with seeking counseling. Right?
Yeah.
And I loved that. And please tell my audience, why should one be able to identify their wounds and heal their inner child?
Okay. Do you know that the people I meet in therapy are the victims of people who need to be the ones coming to therapy?
Oh.
So the people who actually need therapy are not the ones coming for therapy.
Oh, yeah.
So we don't get to fix the problem. So I'll see one person today, and then the person who should be coming to therapy goes on hurting more.
Yeah. So this one who has come to you is a victim of someone who should have sought counseling and help to navigate their own issues, so they don't hurt this one
and
others. Oh my
So
goodness.
the people coming for therapy, yes, they should be coming for therapy to deal with their issues, but the other people who did the damage don't seek therapy. I think it's important.
It is. And when you mention the word damage, I realized that people can be damaged from different sections or spheres or parts of their lives. All right? And just to give a little background of myself, I did a lot of self-healing initially. And this is because I come from a wounded background where I experienced a lot of psychological, issues based on the fact that my parents split and separated at a very early age. Although when I was just getting into teenagehood. And that thing threw a curveball in my life. All right? And so there's so much that happened that as I navigated to now the space of being a young adult, a teenager, a young adult, there are things I was experiencing, though I was working on them, and I did the work myself. I wish then I had information, I had a platform, I had knowledge about, counselors and psychologists that would have helped me. I knew, but it was looking like something that someone needs to seek wakati amelemewa sana. So please tell us, how do you know when to start to heal the inner child, or any, how would someone who was experiencing what I was experiencing handle that?
Okay, first of all, I'm very sorry to hear that, especially being that it happened during a very sensitive period of your life. We usually say that when a person is in the adolescent stage, they're really finding their identity. And failure to find that identity leads to things like an identity crisis. Yeah, so it must have been really difficult for you. But being a child, honestly, there's nothing that you could have done about it. When we speak about a wounded inner child, we mean a state within you where you feel like something was lacking, or something that did not get met or get fulfilled. So your inner child would be wounded growing up, and most people do not realize it until it starts to have implications on your life. So I have a very important question for you, Lillian.
Yes.
Do you feel it had an implication for you?
I think so, yes. And I feel like when I began now to identify the reason why I'm showing up a certain type of way, that's when I realized, Lillian, hold on. Lily, there are some things you need to work on. So it was showing up in, okay, let me just probably, initially, my first relationship or my initial encounter with the opposite sex, my very first encounters, and how it was showing up. I was coming from a very wounded part, I was trying to be a savior. There we go. You need to speak about that savior mentality. So I was coming from a point of a savior mentality, and I was trying to save a relationship, even when many times I realized that it was not working. Tell me about that.
Okay, so I'm getting that you stuck around in situations that you should have left kitambo sana. It happens.
Yes.
As a child who has seen their parents go separate ways, all you want is stability. You want to have something that's working. So you see, that's your subconscious mind that is making you try and fix things, even if you can clearly see that it needs to end. And a lot of people are walking around like that. Situations you should have left kitambo, you keep fixing. You see, this person is broken, this person keeps hurting you, but you don't want to have a broken home like what you had growing up. It's really damaging. And I've had this question asked so many times: why do I keep attracting the same kind of person? People ask that.
Yes.
Why do I keep attracting the same kind of person in a different body?
Yes.
Because you've not done the inner work.
Your
inner child is crying out for something, maybe familiarity. So if all you experience when growing up is brokenness, that's what you're gonna attract. Yeah, or like in your case, where you want to fix it because it broke down at home. Important to know these things, by the way.
So when you talk about something feeling familiar, and you give us a bit of aspect from the, situations that you've handled as you're practicing during your practice. There's moments where you're saying something becomes familiar. I've encountered people, and I've seen people who they're in abusive relationships. But they can't leave, or they're are unable to leave because it feels familiar.
Yep.
Please tell us about that.
Have you ever heard of the concept of a trauma bond? Yeah, trauma bond means, and this is something that is mostly misinterpreted, or people often confuse this as love.
Yeah.
A trauma bond is a situation where you have experienced uncertainty, maybe with your significant other or with a member of the family. One moment they love you, the next minute they are ignoring your needs. One moment they are being the nicest person, the next minute they are discarding you or treating you very poorly. So what happens is your brain gets addicted to the nice feelings that they give you when they're giving you nice feelings. When it gets addicted, it means that your brain will think that whatever you're feeling is love when it's not love.
Yeah.
So it's a very difficult thing to break. And that's why you find most people in those abusive relationships can't leave, because they're trauma bonded.
Yeah.
And you can be trauma bonded to anyone. You can be trauma bonded to your boss,
Yeah.
your significant other, to your girlfriend, to your friend, because they conditioned you or they trained you.
Wow.
So they give you love, they withdraw love, they give you love, you show it. So it trains you.
Oh my God.
And it's very difficult. It's like fighting an addiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trauma bonds are so difficult to
and you're more prone to these trauma bonds depending on the kind of way. How is your inner child feeling? How is your inner child feeling? Is your inner child a healed inner child? Or is your inner child a child waiting for you to rescue them?
Oh, talk about that. When do you know that your inner child is crying and needs to be rescued?
The simplest thing I'd answer to that is, if you find yourself in a situation whereby you know is less than ideal for you, but you still stick there, trying to push things that are not working, overcompensating for situations. What else? Just those two, basically. Yeah, there are more. I'll remember them as we go along.
Yeah.
But a wounded inner child, you find yourself in situations you're not supposed to stick around in. You know, if your friend came to you and told you, by there, I'm going through this and this and that, you tell them, leave. That's not good for you. But when you find yourself in the same scenario, you're there.
Yeah.
Trying to push things that are not working. Trying to be a people pleaser.
Yeah. And those are all aspects of people trying to heal their the inner child is crying.
Yeah.
But it's not able to identify ways to get rescued. So you keep having the same patterns, you keep having the same issues, you keep going through the same challenges, and you're wondering, as you're saying, how am I attracting the same person
in different bodies?
Exactly. And even how am I having the same kind of female friendships?
Those ones, I don't like girl friendships because they backstab you.
Yeah. So at some point you need to ask yourself, why only you? Yeah. Why are you the only person that gets backstabbed?
You're the common factor there.
Anyway, as we take a pause, a small pause, I'd just love to acknowledge the sponsors and partners of this show. That is the Look Hotel, Cravers in Thika, who have been so gracious to host us and to have us record the very first episode here. And we are so glad. I have a story on why the Cravers Look Hotel. I have a story when we'll be back. So, Patricia, before we took a cup of tea, we were talking about the inner child and how you know you need to work on yourself. And there's something you had mentioned about the people who are coming to therapy are coming because they're getting wounded. And they're getting wounded by people who actually need to be the ones coming for therapy. Tell me more about that. Why? I mean, And how can you help someone identify they need to heal their inner child? Exactly. And how do we help the society identify the wounds around them and how they need to come in? Seek you as a professional. Yeah.
That's quite a question, yeah? When I say that people who need to be coming for therapy are not, it's because mainly they are not self-aware. Self-awareness means you know you're broken, or you know you're dealing with something, but you don't. But you actively seek help to be able to deal with that thing. So the people coming for therapy most of the time are victims, while the abusers or the people who are causing the damage don't. In most cases, for example, when it comes to the relationship aspect, there are some people who do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
And it's not by something that they have chosen to do. It's because of their inner child. So this inner child affects every aspect. It affects, first of all, your confidence. It affects the way that you're able to relate with others. It affects your self-esteem.
Okay.
Who you view yourself to be.
Yeah.
Based on the nature of your inner child. How does your inner child feel? So, for example, there's something that we call attachment.
Yeah.
Attachment, in simple terms, means the way that you are able to relate as a child with your primary caregiver. In most cases, the primary caregiver is your mom. That's the one who's feeding you, the one who's changing your diaper, things like that. So, the way that you relate with your primary caregiver affects the way you, Lillian, you grew up to be.
Yeah. Tell me more.
It does.
I mean, I want, I think there are statements that are out there in public. I've heard of, is it mommy wounds?
Yeah.
They're called
and father wounds.
And father wounds. Yeah. That affect us even later in life and how we show up. Give us more context. Attachment styles, attachment ways that we find ourselves in positions where, as you're saying, the relationship we had with our primary caregiver affects how we show up.
Yeah. In very
adulthood.
many areas. Very many areas. And it affects whether we wound others or we don't.
Okay.
Yeah, or we get wounded in the process.
Give us a scenario where you, or a case that you've handled that had a lot to do with that. Yeah.
Okay, before we even go there, when we talk about attachment styles, there are three. Okay, there are like four, but three are the major ones. We have an anxious attachment, an avoidant attachment, and a secure attachment. Yes.
And at the end of this
conversation, you tell me where you are.
Yes, please.
So, have you ever asked yourself why some people are so clingy when it comes to relationships, and they are the ones always getting hurt? They're the ones always saying, "Oh, they're the ones always having relationship issues." Ever asked yourself why? There's a certain category of people we know as the anxious people. This is the kind of person who's very clingy in relationships. They will call you 70 times within 5 minutes.
Na kukuinje wakichapa character development. Wanashinda wakipigia mtu.
Yeah. Those ones. You call 70 times in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So they sent a message at 6, and by 6:01, if you've not responded, they're like, "I know you're out there cheating on me.
Yes.
Are you doing this to me?"
Yeah.
So they're very insecure.
Yes.
These kinds of people, believe me, developed that type of relationship style based on the way that they interacted with their mom or their primary caregiver.
How so? What is it that the relationship with your mom makes you have an anxious attachment style?
Good
Why?
Question. So when they were younger, your mom at that particular point is the one who's feeding you. This is a person who picks you up when you cry. So when you pick up from your mother that they're not, they're unstable in the sense that 1 minute they're good to you, the next minute they're not good to you, you learn to read the room. You know, there are people who are really good at reading the room.
Yeah, and there's ones who are not good at reading the room. Tell us more.
You learn to read the room. So you're always looking for signs. There's a sign here, you're always looking for a sign. Has he sent a message? Has she sent a message without an emoji? Did they forget to send me good morning today? So you're always reading the room.
Is it that is it kidogo like overthinkers?
Yeah, you become an overthinker.
Because you keep reading this message, you're like, this one, ni kama hakuwa anamaanisha Kenya anasema. You're reading so much into something while there's nothing.
You learned how to do that in your childhood because your primary caregiver was not stable. They did not give you stability.
Yeah.
So you mezoea do things when they're unstable. So you get to learn to read things.
Yeah.
And it's very hectic. Because you read even into things you're not supposed to be reading into.
I know there's so much information on that. So that's an anxious attachment style.
Do you know that's a wounded child?
That's a wounded child.
Yeah. They never really got the stability of knowing that my mom is there for me, my dad is there for me. They always have to try. And you know, that's how people pleasers are born.
Oh.
Because you have to now try and appease your parents so that you get something. You have to get good grades.
Yes. So there are those who kept trying to do so much, even in school, so they go back home and show and please their parents.
Yeah. Because of that lack of stability. A child should be loved whether they're doing anything or not. I ever heard of these people who usually say that they are sleep training their children.
Kidogo nilikuwa among the bandwagon. Ebu tell us more about that.
Yeah. People's definition of sleep training is chaos. And it's really traumatizing a child. The child is going to cry themselves to sleep.
Yeah. Okay. No.
So a child knows that even if they cry, no one is coming. And they will learn how to sleep on their own, but they'll still have picked up on something psychologically.
And you know, when you say that, then I tend to believe that it has got a lot to do with the energy that your mother transfers to you when you're a child. So if she was very, if she's also going through her emotions and challenges in her own life, the energy she's feeding you at that point now changes you, and you don't know it until it starts showing up in adulthood.
Yeah, but is that really an excuse? Is that really an excuse? Because you will raise a broken child who will come and further be broken by people who are waiting for them like this.
So this is the reason this mother needed to have sought some sort of help, you know, through a therapist, a counselor, for them to be able to identify the issues that they are facing and in return heal themselves or stabilize themselves or be able to know how to navigate the space they are in, and therefore they do not transfer this to their children. So that's attachment.
An anxious attachment.
An anxious attachment, yeah.
And when they come out here, they are really targets for people who are manipulators. Because all they want is to feel stability. All they want is to feel love. And then a person who's broken, another person who's broken, will feed off that energy. Because they are clingers. So even if you kick them, they'll be back.
Yeah, that's something. There's a topic there. So now there are people who are always ready to have the people who have this anxious attachment style so that they can feed off their energy.
Thank you.
Because they themselves are wounded.
Yep.
So tell us about the other two attachment styles.
Then there's a secure
attachment.
Yeah, this is the child who was raised in love. And saying raised in love does not mean that they go to the most expensive schools or they live the most lavish lifestyle. It means that child knows that my mom and my dad are there for me.
And they
emotionally, psychologically, they're there.
Yeah.
So It means that when they cry, the mom is there to pick them up.
Yeah.
When they need feeding, the mom is there to feed them.
Yeah.
Feed. When they need a diaper change, the mom is there.
And you know, when you mentioned that, there's something that now currently I keep advocating. Can people have children that they can be there for, and not just financially? Because I feel like people think that as long as you can provide for the children, then that's fine.
No, Lillian, your definition of being there for is not everybody's definition of that. So one parent will opt to work day and night and have millions of money to take their children to a very expensive school, and that's what their definition of being there for their child means. While in actual sense, the only thing that child wants is your presence, to help them with their homework, to help them to listen to them and not to push them away because you're too tired, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So this information that you have in this podcast of yours is going to help a lot of people.
And people need to have this information so that they know that what they're doing, in this situation, how they're showing up is going to affect the future generation. And that is the conviction that I had. How can we as a society ensure we heal as a community so that we stop passing these wounds down the generations? Of course, and now when we're passing wounds to others, we have not healed, and then unfortunately they meet the other of a religious type of people. So they're not even telling them, this is a psychological issue. See a counselor, see a therapist, and they'll help you and they'll guide you. What you find is you find an overzealous religious person taking advantage of these wounded people, and what they're telling them is this: kuna mtu alikuendea kando. All you need to do is just seek a counselor and heal. But someone is now introducing the aspect of mtu alikuendea kando, watu wa kwenyu hawakutakii mazuri, that is why hakuna bwana utashikana na yeye, usettle na yeye. While it's not even the fact that bwana like you cannot settle with the husband. It's because there's a way you're showing up in this relationship. There's an attachment style that you have that unfortunately is not working for you. And until you heal that, until you sort that out, you keep having the same patterns. Tell us about the other attachment style.
Before we proceed,
yes, tell me.
We all aspire to be secure.
Yes.
Yeah, we all aspire to work to become the secure version of ourselves. But our parents really did mess us up.
Well, yeah. Ni Gen X parents, ama wanajita Gen what?
I would say everyone. Because this information is relatively new.
Yes.
So people are not aware that when you let a baby sit in their diaper for too long, it's going to have an emotional impact on them.
Yeah.
When you let a baby cry and fall asleep, it's going to have a psychological...
How you potty train them.
How you potty train them is going to impact their personality.
Yes.
So yeah, we all aspire to be secure.
Yeah.
We are all work in progress.
Yes.
The other attachment style is avoidant.
Wow.
There's this term that people are throwing around nowadays, nonchalant.
Very nonchalant, very here and there.
It's good for avoidant. Yeah. So an avoidant is a person who grew up neglected. This person was neglected. They learned to do things by themselves.
Yeah.
They learned how to be independent at a very young age. So their parents were not good parents. In fact, these ones are really bad. Watch out the unstable ones. So the anxious. These ones were really bad.
Oh, yeah.
So you're there, but you're not there. You see, the parents, when you get home, you don't even say hi even to your child. You're always on your phone. You're always doing something on the laptop. Yeah, it can be as mild as that, or it can be as severe as the parenting or the parent who doesn't pay fees and the child goes to work, fend for themselves, to find money to pay their own fee.
Oh, yeah, there's that.
So when that person grows up, they don't need anybody. you don't need anybody, so there's nothing that you can give that they can't give themselves. So you want to leave, just go.
So they also develop a sense of independence, hyper independence,
which is also a sign of somebody who's dealing with an inner wound.
Wow.
Their inner child is wounded.
Yeah.
They become very hyper independent. Imagine being married to such a spouse. They do things by themselves. You hear they bought properties without consulting.
They didn't even ask.
Yeah. Or they traveled to where and you don't even know. Because why would they tell you?
Yes.
Do things by themselves. You know what happens? It's very funny. It's not funny.
Funny or not funny?
It's not funny. Avoidance.
Yeah.
And anxious attachments, they're like this.
Wow.
So tell me what chaos that's going to amount to. A person who's a clinger and a person who's always running away. And funny thing is, when you're dealing with a person who's nonchalant or avoidant, when you get close to them, they run away. They don't want that closeness. They were close to somebody while they were younger and that person let them down. So they will constantly be running, and the anxious person who wants is constantly running after them. It's chaos.
It's so much chaos. And you know, when you're talking about that, I could just kidogo divert the story to what people are experiencing right now. Yeah. Where you find the aspect of ghosting. Aspect of ghosting. And I feel like this is coming from the avoidant attachment kind of people.
That's it.
Where they feel like you're getting too close and they're losing control of themselves into you.
Yeah.
And now what do? They run away. That's why mademo kunje wanalia.
That's a very easy way for you to learn that you're an anxious attachment.
Yes.
You're chasing somebody who's emotionally unavailable. The signs will be there. But you see now your inner child is so wounded, you don't know what is healthy for you and what is not.
Yeah. So you keep running after this person.
Yeah, and they keep hurting you.
Yeah.
And you keep lowering yourself.
Yeah.
Dangerous.
No wonder there was that trend that was going on the bar was too low. And even some saying there was no bar at all.
The bar was in hell.
Yeah. Because they realized they kept doing things that drove them to allow themselves to be mistreated or to be in such low levels that eventually when they now woke up, they asked themselves,
what was I doing?
Nilikuwa nafanya nini hapo? But it comes from an attachment style that they had.
That you had no control over.
You had no control. Just finding yourself doing things because you keep chasing, you keep trying to do the other thing, hoping that this person will stick around.
You keep diminishing yourself for the sake of this other person who really doesn't want to be loved. Because they're running away.
And is it that they do not want to be loved, that they do not know how to accept love?
It terrifies them.
Yeah.
It terrifies them because the key relationship they had at the beginning disappointed them so much. So now that's the imprint that they have.
Yeah.
That's the imprint that they have. Yeah. And it's a subconscious kind of thing. They are not consciously running away.
So
the wounded inner child, Lillian.
Yeah.
And that's why the cycles go on. The cycles go on. You get heartbroken here, you get heartbroken there, and you keep saying, oh, why men are dogs? Yeah.
Because you keep thinking
don't fear women.
Hashtag nasemangaje, take 5 minutes amani
half the day to fear women.
Half the day. Well, but we're not really fearing women. It's just because people are not identifying the wounds that they're having or the traumas that they are carrying and how they are presenting themselves out here.
And one thing that I realized is that even as a therapist, I'll bring it up and somebody will rationalize it. But my mom, that's all my mom had to work with. That's all. But my mom was a single mom and she couldn't do anything. That's the best she could provide, or that's the, and this person is dealing with full-blown abuse.
Yeah.
Dealing with full-blown abuse. Acknowledging that something bad was done to you does not mean that you stop loving your mom.
Yes.
But let people be held accountable so that they also heal.
Yeah.
But when you rationalize things, inakuwa,
doesn't it also make it very difficult for you to heal?
You can't,
because you're not trying to identify the source of your wounds and even deal with that.
You can't deal with it because you're treating it as it was okay. Given the circumstances of what was going on, that was okay, but that was not okay.
It was not okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying it is good for someone to just identify that, say my parents played a part in wounding me. Not that I love them any less.
Yeah, but they did.
But they wounded me.
Yeah.
Now, how do I heal from that point?
Good question. I've been asked so many times, do I go and tell my mom that they did this? Do I go and tell my dad that they did this? But in most cases, my answer is always no. Because it has nothing to do with your healing, and in some cases they'll not even say sorry.
Yeah.
And it will hurt you more.
Yeah.
Or they'll guilt trip you if they're toxic.
Yes.
But then you see, there's something that we call reparenting yourself.
Sorry?
Reparenting yourself. So the kindness, the kind of love you feel you didn't get, you can show that to yourself.
Yeah.
The kind of stability, the kind of home that you'd have wanted for yourself, you can recreate that.
You can. It is possible. It is possible to forgive your parents, your caregivers, the adults, the people who needed to have known better. So it is possible to forgive them without necessarily dragging them into your healing.
You don't need to.
And then from there, make very conscious decisions. There's something from now forward.
Yeah.
So I think
Can I tell you a funny story? Not so funny story. I can't wear sambas. I can't wear Adidas sambas.
She can't wear Adidas sambas. Tell us why.
Growing up, as a girl, you want the glittery shoes, and you want the pretty outfits.
Yeah.
My mom used to get me those ones kitambo.
Okay.
And they look boyish. And for a girl, you can't.
Yeah, you want the glitters. Yeah.
And for her, it's like, they're shoes and they're nice shoes. They last for years. For me, I'm like, no. Even now, I saw them and they re-traumatized me. And you see, it's a very small thing, by the way.
Yes.
But for me, it made a very significant impact. I'm a girl. I'm wearing a dress and I'm wearing sambas. What does that mean?
Yeah.
It affects me. It wounds me to some extent.
Yes.
I know somebody listening will think, that's so petty.
No.
But it doesn't have to be something big for it to traumatize you.
Yeah.
And so we listen to our children, and even as we go forward, as we parent our own children, we do better.
We do better.
Yeah.
I did a lot of work and healing. And I'm telling this to any audience of mine who and that's why I totally hate divorce and separation. Like as a standpoint, don't get into this institution of marriage if you're having an exit plan.
I have a lot to say about that.
I know. Well,
I really have a lot to say about
there's
that.
like caveats to it, but I just believe that broken homes are the number one reason we have very broken children out here.
I agree. But do you feel like you have a bit of transference because of your story?
Please, for the audience, tell them what is transference.
Okay, transference means you view a situation based on your own experience.
Yeah. Well, to an extent, there is a lot of transference. Yeah. But along the way, I also learned transference really happened in my initial stages, probably my very first relationships, where I did not want to leave a very toxic, unstable relationship because of that mentality of, oh, he's my very first boyfriend. This is going to lead to marriage. And oh my goodness, I will never break this. Even when I knew that things were not going right. Things were not going well. But because of that inner child that was wounded and trying to hold on, trying to repair my parents' broken marriage in my own situation, then it was not helping. It was not working for me. But then something else I realized is, hey, because anyway, this is a whole topic on itself. We need to deal with it. But there's a way that these things, how we raise our children, the environment that we raise them in, has a lot to do with how they turn out as adults.
You know, one thing I'd want the viewers to understand is that children do as you do, not as you say.
Wow.
Yeah. So you will tell them, oh, don't drink alcohol, don't insult people. But if that's what you do, that's what they'll do.
Yeah.
So you may think, oh, but I take them to church, but I do this, but you go to church.
Yeah.
You insult people.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you on the phone telling people bad things? They'll do as you do, not as you say. So that needs to be something. We can talk about that, intentional parenting.
Intentional parenting. Because does that, exactly, that forms the basis of, well, when you talk about intentional parenting, I mean, I have a lot of love for my parents, and I feel like to an extent they all did their best, but there are some points that they would have done better. They were the adults. If they were dealing with issues, they would have sought help.
Thank you.
As adults.
Thank you. But did they know that they needed to seek help? That's what the purpose of this podcast is.
Exactly. To be able to make people aware that when you're facing such challenges in life, there's a way you need to go back and ask yourself, what work do I need to do?
You mentioned something about broken homes and divorce, and how we are not supposed to get into marriages if we have an exit plan. It's very variable. In the sense that, especially now that we're talking about the inner child and being wounded, you as Lillian, may really be interested in getting married and being in a strong, healthy marriage and family. But then you get together with a person who should have gone to therapy, but they didn't go. So maybe you have a manipulator in the house.
Yeah.
Maybe you have an abusive partner in the house, a narcissist. Regardless of how much you'd have wanted this to work, you'll have to let it go.
So true. And again, sums up the reason why we are doing this, Patricia. We are having this podcast, we are having this talk show, so that we are helping people heal even before they get to these institutions. So they identify these challenges early and work on their inner child early. So by the time they're getting into marriage, they're trying to get into this kind of, commitment, they have already worked on themselves. Mali watabakisha kidogo, counselor hatashindwa, ama the therapist cannot be able to, not help them navigate. But we are finding people are not even ready to identify these traumas. They're not able to identify they need to heal and work on their inner child.
They don't even know they have traumas. Telling you people are rationalizing things. It was okay. My mom used to tie me with a rope and then pour cold water on me. So that's how we grew up. Mama.
Then if you don't heal, if you don't sort that out, you get into marriage, you are so wounded and you're going to wound your partner.
You think that's how discipline should be?
Yeah.
Think the way your mom used to speak to your dad is how women need to be speaking to their husband. Yeah.
And I love the points that we are having. And the reason why we're not even delving deeper is because we want the audience and the viewers to be able to, send in feedback, send in comments, send in questions, be able to ask us, be able to ask Patricia, myself, and any other counseling and psychologist that we have on this platform. What is it that you think you're facing that you want a professional view, a professional advice? And as we try and wrap it up, Patricia, and today's focus, even though we've touched on a variety of topics, today's focus was healing the inner child. In very few words, please let us know, how do we identify? How do we seek help? And kidogo touch on demystifying. You know, kuna vile watu wanapenda kusema ati ukienda kwa counselor where you are beyond it, you know?
Yeah.
So that, and as we wrap up, please tell people how they can reach you.
Okay.
Because we have you and other upcoming, you know, counselors and psychologists. Now that you're here in this show, how can people reach you? So give us the final summary on healing the inner child. Yeah.
So, first of all, let me start with therapy and demystifying the myths. Huh?
Yeah.
People who go for therapy don't go for therapy because they are crazy. In fact, it's a form of self-care.
Oh,
yes. Like the way you go get your nails done or your hair done.
Yeah.
Or you go for a massage.
Lillian likes massage. So this is a form, therapy is a form of self-care.
Yeah. It's a form of self-care. In the sense that it helps you function. It helps you identify patterns that you may not. By the way, it's not like speaking to a friend. No, people say, "Oh, I'll speak to a friend," or "I'll speak to ChatGPT." By the way, guys, ChatGPT is not a therapist.
Yeah.
I've spoken to ChatGPT myself.
Yeah.
And I tend to believe that it tells you what you need to hear. It tells you what you need to hear, not what is objective and what is right in that scenario. So let's stop speaking to ChatGPT. It's not our therapist. Yeah. So what was I saying? I was talking about demystifying therapy.
Yes.
It's not for people who have mental issues.
Yes.
But now you have to have bipolar. You have to have. Like
you can't. You have to act like nikama umechizi ndio wende.
No. And you know, it's very common out there. It's a very common thing. It's a very common thing out there. So come to therapy. Come to therapy, and we'll identify what areas in your life need.
I love that punchline that you've left us with. Therapy is a form of self-care. Yes. The way you want to go and feel good at a spa, you can actually have a therapist and counselor that you can go and, you know, speak to.
Very confidentially. We don't speak about the things you share in therapy regardless. And we've had it all.
Yes.
We've really had it all.
Yes.
Your story will not be so shocking when you come to therapy. We cannot really exhaust the conversation.
Yes.
But I hope we have been able to pick on what inner wounds are and how they impact us. And people need to really consider therapy. Yeah, so
people need to consider therapy.
Yeah, people need to consider therapy as a form of self-care and as something that will help them become better.
Yeah.
And it's not similar to speaking to your friend. It's a very different experience.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm a practicing psychologist. If anybody would want my services, I'm based in Thika. I also do virtual sessions. That means that you don't have to come all the way to Thika. We can speak virtually.
Yes.
Teletherapy, you know, to me advance the teletherapy. So you can contact me on 0723 096 180. So that's 0723 096 180. Yeah, and all my social media platforms, I'm Patricia Kabogoro.
And we shall be able to just highlight and plug that on the end of this video. And thank you so much, Patricia. Thank you for coming in today. I'd love to see you for another session so that we can explore a few more things. I'd like to thank anybody who's viewing. Please like, subscribe, ask questions, share, engage with me. If you'd like to partner and support this talk show, please reach out. My contact details are at the bottom. If you know of a counselor and a psychologist that you know will be able to give us more insight on different other challenges that we are facing as a society, please plug them. I believe this is a very, very good thing we've started. I believe in the impact that this is going to have, and I want us to do it as a community. Okay, so there it is. We wrap up the first episode of Conversations with Lily. Looking forward to seeing you again, talking to you, and be able to express so much more about this field. Yeah, thank you.